We come to you today, May 16th, 2023, less than 2 weeks to the May 29th, much anticipated May 29th, for good or for bad, to offer the dinner's alternative to the looming chaos, the constitutional crisis that is bound to arise from the bungled 2023 presidential election. We start with providing clarity. Let all of those who are planning all kinds of things first understand where we are, so they can know where they want to go and how they want to get there. Both those who want to coronate somebody who did not win election, and the ones who are insisting they will have to be coronated, away from what INEC, had declared. And the reason we are doing this, the reason we are coming out again, because we had allowed everybody to, run their mouth as they deem fit, but they did not listen when we were telling them since 2020 December. We told them, don't go to this election because of the crisis underneath, because of the constitutional grievances that have not been settled, because of the constitutional disputes that have been raised, because of the fault lines that have only widened over time. Let us leave elections alone and go and sort out those fault lines, those grievances, and the constitutional dispute that has arisen from all of them. Of course, the political merchants from all the sides decided to, just go gamble with the lives of 200 million people. Here we are now, sitting on the tenterhooks. And so, the question of what transpired in the election and what options are available for all at this time. We saw the Supreme Court ruling or decision in the Osun governorship election, in which it said that in any discrepancy between what INEC declares and what the parties contend happened, that the court will fall back to the BIVAS. That principle is not going to vanish in the prison. In fact, with that pronouncement, the Supreme Court has actually decided the presidential election of 2023. For those who know how things work, how did the Supreme Court come to that decision in Osun? It is when we understand it that we'll be able to, extrapolate what will happen, so that we can begin to get ready. People have to get ready for managing the crisis they deliberately chose to plunge themselves into, because they were told very clearly that if we go to election, one more election under this disputed constitution, unitary constitution, with all the underlying problems and fissures, that we're going to get into the crisis that will consume the union. We're there now. We're on the bridge, on that 2023 election bridge. Until the issues are finally settled and nobody's quarreling anymore, we are still on that bridge. It doesn't matter whether they swear in people on 29th or they don't. Everything they do, anything short of acknowledging the problem we have and going into a transition to solve the problem, will result in a fiasco. How that fiasco will, whether it will now explode or implode, is a question of, will be a function of how that fiasco is managed. But as for whether we are heading to fiasco, we are heading to fiasco because we chose to go to election at a time we should have been going to transition to solve the constitutional anomaly. And so, the principle under which the Supreme Court reached that decision in Osun is this: if an agency of government is given mandate to do something by way of a law, like the Electoral Act of 2022, as the amendment to Electoral Act in 2022, INEC was mandated to conduct an election, INEC then makes guidelines. So if an agency is mandated to do something, and within the law of that mandate, it makes guidelines, those guidelines immediately become a part of that law, such that that agency cannot depart from those guidelines. If they do, the consequence will be exactly as will be if they depart from the substantive law. And so it was within that paradigm of reasoning that the Supreme Court reached its decision in Adeleke's case. INEC made guidelines, and those guidelines represent the exclusion of human interference from the point of vote to the point of collation. BIVAS is supposed to capture what happened where there was no controversy from the polling unit into the server, such that you only needed to, anybody, if you bring 1,000 people to collate differently, they will come at the same figures, because everybody is looking at the same thing that came from the field, not tampered with. And so, having gone in that direction, the decision in Osun is that what the courts find in the BIVAS is what has determined who will be governor. You come to the presidential election, INEC openly abandoned the guideline and went on doing his own things his own way, away from the guideline. And so the outcome is already determined by that pronouncement in that other case, because Supreme Court is not going to depart from that principle in this period. And so when we go to what is in the BIVAS, we'll then begin to see what figures will have to change. P2B won the election to the seeing of the whole world, but INEC left its guidelines, which it advertised even on the global stage. Remember that Yakubu Mahmoud, whatever the INEC chair is called, went to Chatham House to assure the global community that yes, within this law, within this guideline of ours, we will transmit results from the point of vote. There will be no human interference. And so on election day, they yanked off the server that should have received the results real time. And so they ended up with uploading 72 hours after everybody had dispersed. And they therefore left some gaps in which results were mutilated manually and uploaded later, that formed the basis of INEC's pronouncement. Therefore, we anticipate, we are confident that the tribunal and the Supreme Court will go with all of that and sort out the figures looking at what is in the system. There are two servers, the one that's supposed to be connected to the IREV, and the one that was supposed to be like the backup. There is enough in it to use to sort out who actually scored what. But when it's been sorted out, it will be clear that the one who truly won, who won more votes that day, actually won. But it will then come to what then will happen if the figures indicate that this is who won. Does that now cure every other thing? The answer is no, because INEC departed from the rules. So the matter does not end with establishing who scored more votes. The one of 25% requirement that was not met, and which Yakubu was told at the point of that declaration that there's a constitutional requirement that has not been met by the candidate he was going to declare, he defied everybody and said, go to court. The 25% that is missing from what the candidate, the declared winner, got. That one is already, that one is already by itself reason the outcome they've declared cannot stand. But for the benefit of those who do not understand some of the other things, because the question of that 25% and the question of the transmission of electronic transmission of results from a polling unit, you know, those are the two, the one of candidate double registration or who did drug business in the past, as far as we're concerned, you know, comes to almost, you know, we don't need to waste energy on it, because these first two are likely to be the determinant. And if they want to sort out the matter, they can send these two questions to the Supreme Court, you know, to say, tell us whether 25% is actually required, as we did say that it is required from what is contained in the Constitution. You must have, you know, 25% in 2/3 of the states, which is 24 states, and the Federal Capital Territory, not one of the 24 or one of the 25, as some of the people are peddling around. So these are all the things that we need to bear in mind. And so it is so easy for the tribunal or the Supreme Court to resolve all this. But then they will arrive at where they have to now tell us what will happen after sorting out all the figures. We can predict that they will arrive at all of that when they look at the BVA, the contents of the BIVAS. They will see that Peter Obi won the election. But are they going to declare Peter Obi winner? Because he will then have, when you remove the figures that were loaded to the opponent, we saw what happened in Port Harcourt, where even by INEC's record to this time, the logo of Labour Party was put on the column of APC, and the one of APC put on the column of Labour Party. So the votes, you know, all kinds of things were muddled up. And so it's easy to reconcile all of that, remove the figures from where they were taken illicitly, and put back to where they were taken. The figures will produce a candidate that has the highest number of votes, that has the 24 states required and the Federal Capital Territory required. But there's going to be another problem. Peter Obi is Igbo. And we can tell all of us up front that because Peter Obi is Igbo, he's not going to be declared the president of Nigeria. Those who do not want to hear it should hear it. These are the issues we have been raising in the last 24 years, even before. Let us leave the question of election alone and go and sort out the key problems that are dragged Nigeria down to the pit, that has rendered Nigeria unworkable. We have ethnic questions that have to be answered. Otherwise, somebody should explain to me why Igbos were killed in Lagos on the day of election, and even after the election, still being haunted, just because they were Igbo. Otherwise, somebody should explain to me why I should pretend it's not Fulani herdsmen that are killing people all over the country. They are Fulani, and they kill others who are not Fulani. Zamfara, Kebbi, Katsina. We see that people who are even Muslims are being killed just because of their ethnic. So we have a very serious ethnic question we have to resolve. And if we have the constitution that's already disputed, that candidate, Peter Obi, that says that the constitution of Nigeria is not the problem, he can now see that it is the constitution of Nigeria that centralized the control and management of electoral process in the manner he has seen now. So that constitution is the problem. the ethnic question of whether we want to be in union or how we want to live in that union, which is the function of the Constitution to settle. But because we have found a way to skirt around the problem since it presented itself forcefully in 1967. We went to Aburi, we came back, and somebody abandoned what was agreed and began to impose what has now become unitary constitution, centralizing ownership and control of everything. And so, where we are is that there is heavy constitutional crisis that is looming. We may block our ears as we used to. The same way we block our ears when Nena said, let us leave election alone and sort out the union dispute first. Now we have an opportunity to go to that solution before the house goes up in flame. Because we saw from London, was it yesterday or the day before, over the weekend, that the running mate on the Labour Party ticket, Yusuf Dati, had asked Nigerians to come out to protest on the May the 29th, the swearing in of somebody they said did not win the election. That is, that is something that is bound to increase the temperature, and nobody can say they should not protest what they see going wrong. But that is where Nina steps in again to say, is this not the time to accept that we have a problem that we need to solve and which election cannot solve, so that we can leave all this talk of mandate alone, whether it is the one of Tinubu or the one of Peter, because that constitution will still be the basis of governance. Whoever is declared, whether the tribunal say go to rerun or go to runoff, or the one declared staying or another one nominated or pronounced to come to be sworn in, everything will boil down to somebody swearing to defend and uphold that 1999 constitution. And that is where Ninas departs from all of them. Nobody will be allowed to govern on the basis of that 1999 constitution beyond the round that I just finished. Buhari was wasted the 8 years. We have all seen how far he was. I saw on the front page of the newspapers this morning where Buhari was boasting that he had laid solid foundation that would take Nigeria to the roof of heaven. Insulting to everybody. But we don't have to bother with him because it's already out of the way. Where do we proceed to from here? This is the time to accept that the Union of Nigeria is in distress. This is the time to accept that we have to leave the question of election and who will preside over the criminal enterprise created by this Constitution 1999 in the name of Nigeria. This is the time we must accept that we have to go to transition like South Africa did to ease itself out of apartheid in 1990. It took them 5 years. Kudesa. If we refuse to do that and we continue to chase after mandate, whether stolen or hijacked or recovered, that mandate, the Nina's question is, mandate to do what? Mandate to come and preside over the criminal enterprise under that constitution? You are going to have a different kind of fight, worse than whatever you went through in election, to find any Nigeria to govern. Like we warned that the winner of 2023 election will not find any Nigeria to govern. We are there now. Anybody of any one of these three candidates, whether it's Peter Obi or Tinubu or Atiku, or even a rerun, whatever comes out, whatever the court pronounces as the outcome of the election, to the extent that it is that constitution that will govern, that will be the basis of the union and the democracy and the governance, we say it up front that there is no Nigeria to govern. The winner of 2023 election should hear it loud and clear. whoever it turns out to be, that there's no Nigeria to govern. What do we mean by that? The land described as Nigeria, if you were to make a pencil mark connecting Sokoto, Maiduguri, Port Harcourt, and Lagos, going back to the Sokoto, you see the map of Nigeria will emerge. And all the land in that area is what is called, is what Awolowo will describe as the mere geographical expression. That is description of this landmass. That's the Nigeria that is there. But Nigeria, the federation, Nigeria, the union of peoples, Nigeria in which Yoruba could go to Damaturu or Fulani could come to Port Harcourt because we're in one political union, is no longer there. That is Nigeria, the federation. And we say we must now go to resolving the question of union and terms of union. Go to the preamble to that constitution if you do not understand what we are saying. When it says we the people, our question, who are the we the people? Because it must be the owners of the the sovereignties that were confiscated in 1914 and now consolidated by 1999. We the people, having solemnly resolved to live in unity as indivisible country, that is now committing their sovereignty into union, and then do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following constitution. That is writing the constitution that we are bandying about now. We have not identified those who are federating. Everything has been by imposition, whether it was the British that lumped everybody together or the military, the caliphate and their military wing, carving out Imo State and Abia State and River State and Kwara State and Kano State without reference to the Ijaw owners of the land, the Yoruba owners of the land, the Yoruba owners of the land, who are supposed to be federating among themselves on their own terms. That is the question we are raising. And all of those who have now convinced themselves, they have conquered us, they have become the owner of our sovereignty to dictate to us, writing constitution. And their collaborators in Abuja, the ones who go to sit in the National Assembly, the ones who, as governors, swear to defend and uphold that constitution, that is the question we have to resolve now. The election that has happened, to the extent that it is mandated by that constitution, goes to no issue. The question of swearing in somebody on 29th, they've been swearing in people since after 1999, where they conducted the election before the constitution came. Since 2003, they've been holding elections and swearing people in. Ninas is not interested in what happens on May 29th. Whether they swear in somebody or they don't is of no interest at all to Ninas. So those who are planning to go to cause mayhem or do whatever protest, they did not listen when we were saying, let us not go to this election. So if they went to the election, whatever they meet is their own. Our own concern is that nobody, including them, will be allowed to govern with this constitution of 1999. They may say, oh, how are you going to do it? We pray people don't learn the hard way on the issues that are being raised, because those who are being killed in all the places where people are being overrun, those whose assets have been detained, economic assets, under by that constitution, those whose lives have been rendered unlivable, so that they now have to flee overseas to go and be slaves. They are slaves in their homeland, they are slaves overseas, because if you have no place to run back to, you are just a refugee. Our people who are in the US and UK and elsewhere, they're just refugees. What are they running away from? It is this monster of unitarism. And so the political actors, especially those from the alliance territory, who are prepared to swear to defend and uphold that constitution, who are then going to election under that constitution. At the time we were shouting, let us stop. 24 years from 1999, that is more than enough time for everybody to understand that we have a problem that needs to be solved. Those who pretend that there's no problem and who have gone to this election are now going to have to learn the hard way. I would think a word should be enough for the wise. Thank you.